We are podcastvideos.com. Our goal is to educate, enlighten, engage, and entertain. We believe in the power of love and transformation through storytelling. Please. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and family, we are back with another episode of Story Scaling. I am Bang, and to my left I have...
Brooke Galligan. I am the Studio Innovations Director here at Podcast Videos. Like this.
And I'm Dan Kraft, the Editorial Director.
Is this Brooke's first podcast?
This is my first podcast.
Brooke, welcome.
Thank you, yeah. Not ever, but here.
First internal podcast.
First internal podcast for
First
Podcast
appearance
Videos.
in the story scaling metaverse.
That's exciting.
I'm brand new.
That's exciting. All right, you guys, we are about to dive into a very interesting topic. For a lot of people, it's a sore spot. For a lot of people, they love it, but it's social media.
Wow.
How do you choose your channels? How do you know where your audience is? If there's 10 social media platforms out there, do I need all 10? You know, today we're going to tap into some of those topics and, go from there.
All right. So what is one of the questions?
First question would be, is social media essential for, Dan, as you were mentioning off air, say you have a show, you want to distribute that show on YouTube. Is that enough? Do you think that in today's time, social media is essential for the success of a show, a product, anything?
I think we start by saying that if you think about a podcast mentality, YouTube isn't a social media at all. It's a distribution channel. It's where you are actually putting your product out there to live. Social is more of the teaser, the marketing, give them the short clips, get them to go to your, whatever your distribution channel is. That's your website, that's your audio hosting, that's your YouTube video. So as we talk through social media channels, you got to remember that from a podcast perspective, you're looking at some that are more distribution channels and not what you would traditionally call a social media outlet. Insta, probably Facebook, pretty far into the social media. LinkedIn, depending on your topic, depending on your audience, if it's a very business-based thing, it could be more of a distribution channel. It can be used both ways, and I have with several clients used it both as a distribution channel and a social push area. But it's one that sort of falls in a gray area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's using MySpace these days. Anybody? Anybody?
Probably not. But but university, I always go back to YouTube. Everybody calls it YouTube University. And so that's where people go to research and learn. And when you Google something, the first thing that pops up is a video from YouTube on how to do it. So, there's a lot of cool things about, it, whether that's social or not. That's, I guess we're here to debate that. But, it's a really good platform to put your stuff out there, especially if you're trying to educate your audience on how to be better at what they do. And it's because people go to YouTube, people go to Reddit, people go to all sorts of different places to consume content and to learn how to do things, teach themselves.
Well, Dan, you made a good point about the difference between social media and just the distribution, outlet. Because I didn't think about it like that. Distribution is simply just, hey, this is going out to market. You can find it here. And then social is everything that drives you to that product that you release. Is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, there's two somewhat different approaches to what you're uploading, where you're uploading it. You've essentially got to be on YouTube these days just for discoverability because, like she said, YouTube is such a trusted channel by the Google search. Mm-hmm. If you're not on Google, you're not showing up. Right. If you're not on YouTube, you're not showing up.
Yeah.
What about the younger generation that's saying TikTok is the new Google? You know what I mean? If I'm starting my podcast today, do I need a TikTok and an Instagram and a MySpace and a Snapchat and a Be Real and whatever?
It's where your audience is, where is your audience? If you're going out there and you're trying to sell something to a younger audience, then you want to be on TikTok and you want to have a lot of stuff on TikTok, and maybe TikTok is where you focus, because one of the things that's, the hardest things to do is to basically stay stay consistent, because that's the most important thing. That's how the search engines find you. That's how you gain trust in an audience, is to be consistent. And just trying to do something for every single platform, that's a lot. Like you can't, you don't want to start out doing like 10 different channels. You want to find where your target audience is. You want to find where the target audience that's going to like make you money first, and then you want to start making content to them. So it just depends. It's like, are you trying to go after like corporate brands, businesses, things like that? Then start with LinkedIn, but if you're trying to sell something like hip and cool, or something that you want to try to do, I don't even have an example because I'm old, but like if you're trying to sell something that you want to be cool, like shoes or something, you want to start on TikTok.
Or Instagram.
Or Instagram, yeah.
If you're a lawyer pitching your idea for wills and trusts and retirement planning,
Don't
You're
go
not
to TikTok.
going to TikTok.
Don't go to TikTok. No.
I'm not sure where you go actually, other than possibly mailers. But
yeah, you go to the Channel 5 News.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But you listed off a dozen off the top of your head pretty easily. And a lot of people seem to think that they've got to be on everything.
Right.
A Vine, a Vimeo, a B-roll, you will overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. No,
This is the voice of experience.
I know. As
You
an
can't be
overwhelmed
everywhere.
person.
Pick a few that are going to work for your audience, that work for you in terms of the technical side of uploading. You know how to use it. You know how to look at your analytics. Stick with the main ones to start, at least, unless you're highly specialized. But don't try to be everywhere on the internet. It will burn you out. It will backfire. You won't be able to put up the consistency, and the return will be minimal compared to the
Well, to Brooke's point, I think there's this term that I've been kind of circulating, but it's called compound interest. And so it's like the bank metaphor. Dan, did you talk about this?
Mm-hmm. I was in the meeting.
Yeah, but there's this bank metaphor that means just as you continue to invest, whether that's, capital in this case. In this case, it's videos. Then, people start to pay attention, and that interest kind of builds. And even people's interest of like being interested in you also starts to build. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, Brooke, you brought up a good point with just like so much of this is just rinse and repeat. It's just showing up and being consistent. And if you have 10 channels, if you can manage that, great. But how often can you manage 10 channels well and kind of give that same level of output? You were sharing a story about somebody that you know that.
Yes, my aunt-in-law, she has has an insurance business, and she was like, well, my audience is everywhere, so now I have to be on every single social media platform. And I was like, well, that's a lot, because your main job is to sell insurance.
Right.
So that's what you should be focusing on, and social media is an avenue to help you do that. But where's your main audience? Who is your primary audience? Who are the people that you make the most money with, and you start there. And it was, hospitals, doctors, medical stuff. So it was like LinkedIn. That's where you go to reach people like that. And so, LinkedIn, possibly YouTube, so I was just like, focus in on what works. And then once you figure out, I've got this content, I've grown this audience, then you can start branching out.
Yep.
When it becomes consistent and it doesn't take as much time, because a lot of the time is figuring it out how to do a YouTube video, because we did that. I worked at the Washington County Observer for a year, and one of the things we did is it was a weekly newspaper, and every week we would do a video where we would go over the publisher would go over the newspaper and just kind of go through the news. And I would film him, and he was really funny. He was a character, and I would film him and I would edit it together, and I would put it out there on YouTube, and we would share it. But we did it every week for months, and it got to the point where we were getting postcards from all over the world, because apparently we found a fan base in Germany or something, and they just thought he was hilarious. And so, but it all came down to editing, just making the right cuts and just cutting when and then making it really funny and just kind of building off his personality. But it was also just, we did it for once a week for months.
Wow.
Know what you can do. Not everybody can do that kind of editing and cutting. So for some people, maybe you're hiring someone to handle social media. Maybe, and you brought up a good point, social media isn't a standalone silver bullet to grow your audience necessarily. It's part of a marketing plan that you're going to need to have. The insurance lady, maybe radio is a better idea than Instagram.
Local, yeah.
Yeah. social media has been talked about as sort of its own standalone stand-up vertical in the marketing world, but it needs to be integrated with a bigger marketing plan.
Yeah.
Where you got to know the audience first. You got to know where they're at. You got to know what they're looking for. And that's going to guide you into whether they're social media or other channels.
Yeah.
In terms of how you grow your audience.
Yeah, I think, so here's what I want to do. I want to kind of give some tips, and then everybody just, leave the audience with one major takeaway. Like and this whole episode has kind of been essentially that, action items and takeaways. But if you could say your one, thing, like, hey, keep in mind, and I'll go first as the social media manager here. I just want to kind of maybe clear up a couple misconceptions. Then you made up a really good point. Social media is not the answer to all the problems. It can help you leverage what you have, but it's not like you just jump on and all of a sudden you have a viral famous show. It doesn't work like that. You need intentional strategy. Like you said, a marketing plan, and social media is a vehicle to help you execute that plan.
They say the best way to really build a famous podcast is to be already famous for something else. Yeah. This is why Travis Kelce and his brother have a great podcast. They're already famous. Mm-hmm. Paul George started his, went viral immediately. Well, Paul George is Paul George.
Right.
Not everybody has that advantage.
Sure.
So the rest of us kind of have to work at it.
Yeah. I think another thing that's important, Brooke, you mentioned this earlier, there's a misconception that you have to do it all. You don't. Find two. Really one to start with, but then maybe another one if you can. But have consistency in one realm. And then continue to branch out. And then the last thing I would say is know where your audience is, Brooke. I think that's a big one. If your biggest supporters, whether that's your viewers or people that are actually supporting you monetarily, are on Facebook, it makes no sense to spend most of your time on LinkedIn or on Instagram. You know what I mean? You can grow those platforms, but you have to cater to what's catering to you, I think. Mm-hmm. What do you got, Brooke?
Yeah, I would say keep it simple. Just that's when you're especially when you're first starting out. Keep it simple and keep it consistent, and those are the two things. If you do that, then it will grow and it will change and it will evolve to to basically what your social media presence should be.
Yeah, my buddy's a social media director. He said, "What can you do the most consistently at the highest level?" Like, that's the way to think about it. If that's only like posting a picture of a coffee mug a day, but you can do that every single day, pretty efficiently, then do that. You know what I mean?
I would not have a problem putting up a picture of coffee every day.
I know, yeah. You would put multiple pictures up, yeah. And you can also overdo it too. Sometimes I know in LinkedIn, like if you're posting like 7 or 8 times a day, like it will start to devalue your post because it doesn't even know what is supposed to be valuable and what's not. And so, be really impactful with your posts and be impactful with your strats. So just make sure that you're posting consistently, but not overdoing it, because overdoing it can actually negatively impact you as well.
Sure.
I think my biggest takeaway from having done it for several of our clients is the fact that I have my audience on various social platforms.
Yes, you do.
Because my audience aren't necessarily very big. But if I put this video clip on my social media platforms, the biggest way I can extend that reach is by making sure that you reshare it to your audiences, and then so do you, because that's bringing more eyeballs that I can't get myself. Mm-hmm. Make sure you're activating your co-hosts, your guests, their companies. The more interaction, the more reposts, the more sharing, whatever other buzzwords we've got within the social media industry these days, the more they can repost, reshare, broaden your audience through their own audiences is going to bring you better metrics, better exposure, bigger compound interest. Best
advertising is still word of mouth.
Yep.
If you like it, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend.
Mm-hmm. If you don't, shut up.
Yeah, and if you don't. On that note, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you got any questions, if you want to learn how to better navigate social media or what channels to use or any of that, you can go to our website, www.podcastvideos.com. There's plenty of articles about that. Or if you got specific questions, feel free to comment on these videos or hit us up directly. That's what I got.
All right. Thank you.
See you next time.
Thanks, guys.